Exodus chapter 26 verses 1 to 37 describe the tent in which the furniture was to be housed. It was designed by the Lord after the pattern of a travelling Arab tent, but on a far larger scale and with much more luxurious materials. Verses 1 to 14 describe the tent itself, verses 15 to 30 the framework over which the tent was to be fixed, and verses 31 to 37 the curtain which was to divide the tent into 2 rooms or compartments. As with the furniture, the tent contained symbolic elements which were intended to teach the people about God. The first great truth which it revealed was that the Lord was both a glorious God and yet one who dwelt among his people. Thus the tent was extensively decorated with cherubim. We cannot be sure exactly what these creatures looked like, and the Bible does not give us a clear explanation of their significance. However, we can say 2 things about them. They're usually described as the bodyguard of God himself, and are always very near him. They're also described in such a way as to emphasize that they were heavenly creatures. These facts suggest that they were intended to teach the Israelites 2 things. They were intended to remind God's people that the Lord was a great God, one who was over all things. Equally, they would have suggested to the people of old the nearer presence of God himself. It's always necessary to hold these 2 truths together. Over familiarity with the Lord was discouraged, but he was not so exalted that he was distant, unapproachable, or uninterested in his people and their needs. Indeed, he was present in the midst of his people. But this was not in such a way as would lead them to presume upon him. Different Christian traditions seem to emphasize one or other of these great attributes of God, and this is a mistake. We need both truths, and we need them together. Only then can we come to a proper understanding of he who is our God. However, this was not all that God intended to reveal of himself in the temple. He also showed himself to be the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, in particular the Lord of his people. Thus the tent was designed on a grand scale, double the size of an ordinary tent. Then it was made of materials which were usually the privilege only of royalty. The same God who was glorious and yet present among his people was also the Lord, who called forth their obedience. Only faithful obedience would enable the people to draw near to him with confidence, and we too can only benefit from his presence and power if we obey him. Otherwise that presence will be known by us only as a consuming fire of judgment. Now, of course, we do not have the tabernacle. However, the Lord Jesus tabernacled among us, as John stresses in his Gospel in chapter 1 in verses 14 and 18. And he revealed by his life and words the character of God. And we are the temples or tabernacles of God's Spirit, as Paul reminds us in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 16. So we do not have a tabernacle whose plans we must faithfully reproduce, but we do have one whose life and words are to be the model upon which we are to build. Moreover, our lives are to display to men and women the character of God, just as the tabernacle revealed God to the Israelites. May God give us grace to be faithful.